Because taking work from our children, they need to recruit another one supervisor or somebody as that external cost, additional cost for them. So we understand why can't we establish a workstation inside of a school? Likewise, a school can run a candle unit, a masala unit. Why can't a multimedia unit here? And now we have already established a 20 multimedia unit in India. But it was not easy to do work with special children, come from a different background, and working with all together different things. We understand the loopholes. We understand in special education, we were just talking about the IQs. And there were different patterns of measuring the intelligence level of a person's. We started evaluating the creative strength with the help of the CQ. And we have already evaluated the creative quotient of more than 5,000 people, special children across the globe, including the Dubai and other continentals. We have converted one famous method which is running in the school since ages. It was PTM. And PTM it's a very sad time for the parents when parents don't want to go to the school. We have started converting that PTM method into PTS, Parents Training Session. And already we have converted that method in 200 schools in India. We believe in one thing, as far as the learning is concerned, the 10% of whatever we see, we can learn. We read, we can learn. The 20% of whatever we hear, we can learn. The 30% of whatever we see, we can learn. 50% of whatever we see and hear, we can learn. 70% of whatever we discuss, we can learn. 80% of whatever we experienced, we can learn. And 95% of whatever we teach something to someone, we can learn. And that's how we converted the method. And that's how we have converted the method. We have developed another one thing that we call it SOUL, Self-Organized Learning Environment. And after the help of this SOUL, we have around 28 persons with special needs working in our company. Some of them are the assistant faculties.
5 minutes more.
I will do it. So there are 3 types of nature of employment what we believe in: the skill, self-employment, supportive employment, and in-house employment. And in context of this, we are now working with all the metropolitan cities in India, and we have started virtual classrooms for the B cities and C cities of India as well. The future of tomorrow, what we believe in, today, many of the conferences, many of events, stalls, everything, they are sensitizing and awareing people about the person with disabilities. We have developed another one beautiful creation, that is disabled mannequin. Last year, we were the first company in India and second in the world who have launched the disabled mannequins to make people aware about their disabilities. Now, the next future what we are planning for is about, what Tejal sir was discussing about the tools, and I'm really sure that this is going to be helpful to the homeschooling segment also. We are going to make a smart lab for our special schools, and by the 2020 we will be doing it. Now, at the last, I really would like we should take a place about Think Equality Before Inclusion. That's a global campaign what we are already working in many of the countries and part of India. And this is about, if I'm going to include yellow with blue, it will be green, it will be something else. We should be equal before the inclusion. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, IIDSC, for this beautiful opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Rakesh. And we can invite questions. Since we are running behind the time, we can accept maximum 2 questions. And I think questions should be more relevant. It's okay.
Yes. Sir, if you go to the e-commerce market, for an example, you are a stationery manufacturer. So you have thousands ranges of diaries, right? If you wanted to place your one diary into the Flipkart, how it will be done? You will click your photograph of the product, and you will send these pictures to the school, to the Flipkart, right? But Flipkart will not place the pictures immediately. Any e-portal don't place the picture immediately because it has something else in background and light reflection, shadow of the products. So we have trained our children with special needs to do this repetitive and monotonous job So workstation means that we have already established the 200 special children who are working as in supportive employment and self-employment across the India. It's like training to the children first to enhance their cognitive skills and second to exploring a new modern outlook for a work opportunity. I'll just give you one example. NI is a very famous global campaign, newspaper in education. It was initiated by the Britain government in early 19s, came in India in late 90s. According to them, newspaper should spread to the class from class 3 to class 12. But in India, special schools, they are not getting benefit of that. Our children, our special children, they have developed one visual newspaper, that is Jigyasa, and we have around 21,000 subscribers of that paper. So what is the beauty of this paper? Special schools started getting a newspaper, and our special children started getting an employment opportunity. So more or less, we are working to explore a new dimension to the employment opportunities.
Any question? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Rakesh.
Thank you.
Parents are requested to keep their children to the Tarmarin Hall. It's okay? Parents are requested to keep their children in the Tarmarin Hall. Okay. Our next speaker is Leela Bakshi. The title is Speech and Learning, a session on Skype. Yeah, Leela. Oh, Leela is in the Skype. Okay, start. Please, you just.
My name is Leela.
Excuse me, one moment, Leela ma'am, one moment. One moment,
You can hear me?
please. One moment, ma'am.
Okay.
Parents, please pick up your kids from the Tamarind Hall. They are wrapping up the session at the Tamarind Hall. Thank you.
And where is he now? Where is he? Where is she now? She's in the UK. Oh, she is in the UK, Leela. Okay, you start.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we can wait.
I'm speaking to you from Brighton.
Okay.
Coast of England. With Dimble UK. Joined my boss's son and other local practitioners rather.
Maybe there is technical problem, I think. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, you can start.
Okay, I start from the beginning, yeah? Okay. Hello, my name is Leela Bakshi, or Baxi as we say here in the UK, and I'm speaking to you from Brighton on the south coast of England. I have worked as a speech and language therapist with Symbol UK since 1997. When I joined, my boss's son Kieran, who has Down syndrome, was 4 years old, and I became involved in running weekly group speech therapy sessions for Kieran and other local children with Down syndrome. From this, Symbol has developed, becoming leaders in providing syndrome-specific speech and language therapy for people with Down syndrome in the UK. We are practitioners rather than researchers. Alongside working with hundreds of people with Down syndrome from babyhood to adulthood, we drive forward practice through providing training and support to speech and language therapists, support workers, school staff and families, and sharing insights from research literature and experience from clinical practice, as well as working with key players concerned with Down syndrome in the UK. I have been doing this work for Symbol for 15 years when I went on maternity leave in 2013 and my baby Jacob arrived with Down syndrome. You might think that the speech and language therapist kid will be a super duper speaker, but Jacob is 4 and not yet speaking or signing. He is a smart little communicator and I believe he's on the way to becoming a talker. He has needed expert specialist support around his feeding skills and working towards speech. It was like all my working life I have been preparing for him to come. I want to start by foregrounding the experiences of people with Down syndrome with regard to speech. I often hear from our clients here in the UK that talking is hard. For Jacob, using any words at all is hard. For people with Down syndrome who are public speakers, then maintaining clarity and fluency is often hard work. When we think about speech and Down syndrome, we need to remember that the experience of learning to use speech and speaking itself is hard. The second message I hear from adults with Down syndrome going about their lives is that people make fun of me or they bully me because of my speech. In my experience, this point is discussed before mentioning that people don't know what they are saying. Speech issues affect how you present to the world as much as impacting on getting your message across effectively. There is much we can do to support people with Down syndrome in achieving clearer speech, and I know others have presented at this conference on, for example, oral motor skills. We also need to support people with Down syndrome in living with their different experiences of speaking, as well as setting high expectations around improving speech and speech clarity. Researchers have written about the multifaceted nature of speech impairment in Down syndrome, and designing and delivering speech intervention is a technical business. For example, I guess this statement will sound familiar to you. Her speech is hard to understand because she speaks too fast. However, a second statement may also be unsurprising to you, that some researchers have found that children with Down syndrome produce less words per minute when they are speaking than typically developing children, indicating a slower speech rate. So, it seems that the disruptions to the flow and rhythm of syllables leads to a perception of fast speech rate. Is it helpful to suggest to slow down? I think it is, if accompanied by techniques that address the timing of speech. So, tapping out the rhythm as you speak not only slows you down, but also makes it easier for the listener to recognise and process each syllable and hold more words per minute because it's more efficient. The building blocks of speech production include learning to say speech sounds and work on motor skills to support this. And with our little ones now, we use these sound cards. So this, for example, is duh, duh, duh. And we have a sign that goes with it, duh, duh. And we have a sentence, digger, dumping, dirt and mud. And this one is a card for n. Notice the noise in your nose. Turn it on, n. This addresses issues with speech sound production associated with the motor impairments with Down syndrome. Learning to notice and recall the sound structure of words through clapping syllables and listening for the sound structure of words and listening for rhyme addresses underlying issues with processing speech sounds and words. So, for example, yesterday I was working with a young woman who says her ambition is to win dance competitions, but she says competition. So I can show her competition. I can show her that it's four claps. Competition. And this helps her to understand the sound structure of the word and achieve clearer speech. Practicing a core vocabulary of words that is motivating to the individual and within the current production capability of the individual supports word learning and linguistic development. So for a very young child who can say k sound and can say vowels, we might practice cow, car, key. For an older child, we would practice words that are important to them but challenging. Yesterday, I was talking to a lad about being a teenager, his experience of being a teenager. But he says t and n in his teenager, in the three syllables, in any order. So sometimes he says dinana, and sometimes he says ditina. So I show him that teenager, the written word. Here we have, I don't know if you can see it. It says teenager, and then I can show him the sound structure. So I can show him teenager, teenager. And in doing this, leveraging skill visual processing to support the issues with auditory processing. There are also non-linguistic elements to speech production, such as increasing voice volume, through addressing posture, or simply through giving prompting and reinforcement to establish a more useful volume. Improving language skills so that words are supported by more context also means that the listener has more information to guide the interpretation of speech that is not clear, so that the sentences themselves and the narrative accounts give more clues. These strategies address the underlying difficulties associated with Down syndrome that make the experience of speaking feel hard and the process of struggle rather than the mainly effortless experience of those without communication impairment. Because these strategies target the difficulties, they are likely to be hard work. But we can do more with the strengths associated with Down syndrome. Visual means of communication, like written words, pictures, symbols, or objects, make it easy for our young people to show as well as tell. But if we make available alternative means of communication, does this reduce the use of speech? I would say if we model and support and celebrate spoken language alongside using communication charts or even celebrate attempts at speech, then this support can increase speech attempts by ensuring successful communication and building confidence. This leads to the recommendation that we should continue to use sign language support alongside speech after spoken languages emerge for our children, particularly for hard to learn words or hard to say words. And we can also use word banks, communication charts, or digital devices a communication chart that our young people use to tell how they're feeling, which will do many things apart from overcome speech problems. It will also give them ideas and suggest possible answers. The term repair skills refers to taking steps to get the message across when communication is failing. Researchers pointed to repair skills as key to communication success for people with Down syndrome. Our young people may experience more successful communication when they know strategies like to repeat the message or find a visual to use for communication or give additional explanation or even just to enlist somebody else's help. Finally, polishing personal presentation skills are key to enhancing speech intelligibility and also readying our young people to rise to the challenge of living in a world that should be more disability friendly. Head up, hands down, strong voice. Others understand more easily when you use these. We can teach each strategy by using modelling, explanation, practice, reinforcement and prompting. But feeling good about yourself, feeling confident is also associated with this stance. Ultimately, supporting our young people to feel good about themselves, proud of themselves and confident of their value and contribution is also key to responding to their experience of speech issues. What you have to say is more important than how you say it, but how you say it will affect how people see you. As a speech and language therapist, and also as a mama, must keep this in mind when I think about speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leela Bakshi, for your presentation from the remote UK. Okay. Now, thanks. Now I'm inviting Mrs. Aditi Verma. Miss Aditi Verma. Title of her presentation is Self-Advocate Forum of India Journey Towards Empowerment. And there is a little introduction on Miss Aditi Verma. Miss Aditi Verma is an entrepreneur. She manages a food joint in a Navi, Mumbai, and she named it Aditi's Corner. She services homemade food, tea, coffee, cold drinks, snacks, chocolate, and cupcakes. She keeps account of sales, maintain records of credit sales, and credit due money. Monthly salary of Aditi's is 50,000 rupee. Okay, please start, Aditi. Microphone.
Hello, my name is Aditi Verma. I'm coming Mumbai. I'm telling you of Safi journey of journey towards empowerment of person with Down syndrome. Self self advocacy movement in an organized manner was promoted by our parent organization Parivar, meaning family since 2008. The need for organization of forum for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities, including Down syndrome, never dawned on the mind of rehabilitation professionals in the country. The value of our advocacy was realized only after the UNCRPD and UNESAP called for making right real for persons with disabilities. There has been flurry of activities since then. In recent time support for us, especially from our parents, organizations. These developments were good for us. Despite all this development, we are still living in the shadow of our parents, professionals, and others. In 2008, Parivar, our national confederation of parents organized started to bring us together, build self-advocacy, organized with support from CBM. Since then, many active self-advocacy chapters have been formed in the states across the country. We have enrolled nearly 1,500 members across the country. In 2013, we support from the National Trust, an autonomous body under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. And CBM, we conducted the first national conventions in October 2013 at New Delhi with participation of 150 self-advocates, mentors, families and others from 12 states. We have come long way. We were able to demonstrate our capacity to speak for ourselves. We created national forum called SAFI, Self-Advocates Forum of India. We deliberated and issued a statement at the end of the national conventions, including some of the key areas that need attention. They are self-respect, decision-making opportunity, public respect, employment opportunity in the sector, free transportation at your areas, equal citizenship, research, education and employment, rights, raise voice. Our responsibilities from time to time, we had opportunity to address and participate in various public forums. We participated in the Inclusion International Asia Pacific Regional Forum held at Kathmandu, Nepal. and into-allied encounter on lethal capacity organized by NASA University Hyderabad. Global Action Week conference education organized by NCE at New Delhi. CBM National Constellation Workshop on the Right of Person with Disabilities 2014 at Bangalore. We conducted National History Meeting of Safin at Hausar, Tamil Nadu and again Kerala. Livelihood program in different areas. We had Safin new office, barriers for different states and constituting meeting regularly month-wise. We regularly address our issue at the annual Parivar National Parents Meets. Our representatives serve on the decision-making body of state and Central Executive Council of Parivar. We had second Safi National Convention at Udaipur in November 2015 and Bangalore in November 2016. In that meeting, we had 150 self-advocates and they are discussed about decision making and legal capacity, political participation of and promotion of Safi. There was a time when no one trusted us and battled it. We are now emerging a strong advocates in on behalf. We are raising our voice. Yes, we can. Safi needs capacity building for manifold intervention when issues relating to us are discussed. We need professional guidance and support from our parents and professionals. In relation our dreams, we demand our right to be consulate. We want to make change our lives for ourselves through Safi Forum. We want no one should doubt our ability to make change in our life for friends. We want the community to acknowledge the significant role we can play in drafting in our agenda tomorrow. We must be seen as allies rather than only viewed as sons, doctors, students, and dependents. We wish to partner in the mission to help in our transition. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Special thanks to Aditi Verma, being a self-advocate, and she showed her courage and effort to come to the dais and to give a lecture on the advancement of Indian self-advocacies of children with Down syndrome. Okay, now our last presenter is Rinki Yusuf. I'm just inviting Rinki Yusuf to present her paper.
Hi everyone. Just want to correct my name. It's not Rinky, it's Rincy Joseph.
Sorry.
Rincy. And on the brochure, if you have noticed, my topic is kept suspended. Okay? Yeah, I'll break it very soon. I'll just let you all know soon. But I want to see my first slide. Can you all pass a smile with each other? And I'm sure every one of us have seen the movie Three Idiots. Just keep our hands to our chest and say, all is well. All is well. Yes, because ultimately I know the pain what is within us. When we join in a group, when we sit in forums like this, it's very easy to show a smiling face. But going back home, at least there are some moments when we feel low, isn't it? That's great to say no, but I'm sure the young parents will definitely have that still going in them. Yes, coming close to my topic, I'm not here to say any theories. We heard a lot from yesterday. We know a lot, and that's why we are here. So this is just practical life which I'll be taking, especially for the younger parents, because again I want to stress here the importance of 0 to 6 years, 0 to 10 years maximum, which we all know the early intervention stage. So it's all practical life. Every life is precious. True? But I am standing here, and I stood out 14 years back, away from the crowd, realizing a reality, that is, life is a right of every child, and not a special privilege for the fortunate, the planned, and the perfect. We all have had a very negative experience of a bad counseling, which says, I don't want to mention that word, and I know that you all don't want to hear that word, which is retarded. Yes? So from there, I started my journey with my son, who is 14 years now. These are my 3 kids. They are here now. The elder one, 16 plus 4 months. Second one, 14 plus 5 months. And he is my inspiration, Alan Joseph. And my younger daughter, 12 years and 8 months. You can just see this, the spacing. And you can understand how difficult it was when a journey was started with 3. So, as I said, it is all practical life. It's very easy to sit and hear things. We can make plans. But when it comes to implementation, time is a factor which keeps us away from doing what we really want to do. Am I right? I don't want anyone to just, hear me. It's better if we interact, because ultimately implementation is where the success lies in our child. Talking about me, when I started my journey with my son, it was a nuclear family. I'm a working parent, as well as a university student. I was working with the Dubai Health Authority when I got my son. Of course, 3 children, one of them a special child, and now I'm running a trust at Kottayam. I always get this question in front of me: how do you manage everything? So the objectives for today's presentation is sharing my life experience, especially to the younger parents, to motivate others, to spread awareness, to build a positive attitude in our society, to reduce the social stigma, to raise the value of life of children born with trisomy 21, to emphasize the importance of consistent training and support, to create an inclusive tomorrow. And this, when I mean of all these objectives, I know we are all parents already motivated and coming from different parts of India. But one candle can light thousands of candles, isn't it? We have to take the message home and light the candle in our local places. And as I go through, it will be based on systematic lifestyle, focused short-term goals, prioritize needs, least restrictiveness, no compromise, family bond, my attributes, faith in my son, trust in his creator, followed my intuitions, and I believed in myself. Dictionary definitions for time management. It is a process of organizing and planning how to divide your time between specific activities. A day's hours is never enough for us. We hear people saying, yes, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. But busy doesn't mean that we are a good time manager. It requires an important shift in focus from activity to result. I hope you understand that. Shift in focus from activity to result. That means implementation. So the first point, systematic lifestyle. Of course, when I talk from my side, a wife, a mother, and an employee. You know, everything I have a lot to talk, but because of the time restrictions, I have to be very precise in each. A mother, she has to handle her family, cooking, cleaning, everything. If she's a worker, she has to go for a job. So how crucial the time is. But the most important part is our child, our special child. We have to give them the time, what they have to get. Planning my kids' time, setting home routine charts, maintaining star charts and reward system, and I be one among them for everything. So the day's plan is already set for them from the time my son is awake till he sleeps. Okay, I set a routine for him, and his time is never compromised for my kitchen work, neither my work, neither my recreation, nothing. I go to the kitchen when he's sleeping or when he's in the school, and the other time when he is at home, I spend my time with him. And again, to get things implemented, we have to motivate our children a lot. So the reward system, the star chart, all these things I started from the day one, from a very younger age. So I basically did not have to teach his younger brother what to do like. He was also going on the flow. The second thing is focus goals, age-appropriate growth setting. When parents come to me right now, like, what will be their future after me? I tell them, why do you think of that now? Let's think of today and then we'll think of tomorrow later. Because what happens is they forget to think what they need to do today, isn't it? When we spend too much of our mind thinking of what is going to happen after us, who will do the things what we need to do today? So the implementation, the early intervention phase, when parents spend a lot of their worries and time with what is going to happen after 20 years, the child is not getting benefit there. Guidance and planning to meet the goals. When I set a goal for my family, for my kids, I guide my children. My elder one was always on the track, so he also learned all the process what I was doing for Alan. Of course, the goals were set. The center part was Alan, but then his brother also came on the track. Consistent implementation of set goals. This is where we fail sometimes because of our life problems, life issues. And sometimes this consistency, if we break that, it's again to rebuild it is difficult. Teamwork for achievement. This teamwork, I mean about the family. Father, mother, the siblings together, when they do a work, it becomes much easier than a single parent or just the focus is on one child. Again, because of time, prioritizing the needs are very important. Be sure of what we have to do first. List out our daily schedule from the most important to the least so that we don't avoid the important ones. And most important, do not take your child's time for any other work or needs. We have to go for outings, we have to welcome visitors, we have marriages, celebrations, all those things, but maybe that is your child's home study time. Especially when you talk about academics. Inclusive education is very easy to hear, but it's not at all easy.
5 minutes to go.
Sure, sir. So this consistency and managing your time is very important. Do not keep postponing your child's goals for the next day. Least restrictiveness. This again, your child should get equal importance wherever he is. It has to start from your family, from your home, then again at school. And this goes in par with my friend Deepa Gaurav. She was presenting. She was telling about her experience, how she handles with the school authorities. You have to be in close touch with them so that they feel ease to handle our children. And in public, I'll just give you one example. My child was, initially, on the initial days, we used to take him to church and places there. One of the counselors came and they said, can you keep your child in a corner like? I said, why? He's not creating any issue there. No, the other people are looking at you, looking at him, and they're getting distracted. I said, that's not my child's problem. The other children are looking because they haven't seen a child like this so far. Let them see, let them get satisfied themselves, and they'll be fine. So you have to be the voice of your child. No compromise. Often, when parents get a child of a special need or a special ability, where we wish to say like that, we forget about other members of the family. And that is the time when the bonding gets, broken up. So needs of the other members have to be taken care, equal division of time, engaging others in all other activities, open discussion, transparency, avoid unnecessary wasting of time. Wherever we can just compromise, okay, I don't have to sit up for a movie now. I need something else to do. Or this outing can be avoided because this thing is more important. So prioritizing always is very important in our life to keep the implementation going. As I said, family bonding. The father, mother, the other children, they have to be together with you, not just the mother or the father alone going on with the child. It has to be a family approach. Again, our attributes. When you decide to do something, it's not just for one day, it's a whole life process. So determination, selfless commitment, patience, focused and short-term plans. I really believe in my son. My son can do it, and I know he will. He puts in all his efforts, and he is determined. He has high self-esteem, and he is very energetic. This, in the UK, they have individual person-centered approach. For each condition, not just for trisomy 21, for everyone, whoever is a little bit different, they have a one-page profile saying what the person likes, what are the person's choices. If you wish, I think you can read through, and I'm running short of time. What's important to know about my son, what best you can do to support my son. And this profile we can adopt, and we can keep a card like, wherever the child moves, if he's going to a new environment, he can carry this so that people, those who are not known to him, can get to know. And of course, trust is in his creator. We all know that. We can't change the child's present. We can't change his future. I was not in charge of his birth, right? Nor in his death. I can only care and love for him. He is just given to me by someone great. Then how can I possess him completely? I just keep doing my best. Yes, my intuitions always supported me to move forward. I did not get any proper counseling, nor did I have a guidance or support like this, what we have now. No one to correct me and say, no, this is wrong and this is right. Initial days, no motivations at all. Of course, I had to be the strongest among all because my husband believed in me. He thought that I am the best person to decide everything. He is always there with me, but behind the curtains to say, okay, you go on, you carry on. Trials and errors were my initial life. The first person to say, yes, you will succeed. Can you guess who it is? Okay. She's always been my inspiration, my motivation. When Alan was 2+ years, we met her, and throughout, until now, and I hope throughout my life, I'll be very close to her.
Thanks.
I believe in myself. And Alan's achievements, he's a very energetic 14 years old boy, attending CBSE school. He's doing his 7th standard, preparing for NIOS board exam because I am determined that he has to get a certificate of his own, not keeping a scribe and just getting a beautiful, beautiful certificate which doesn't belong to him. High self-esteem, he's independent, he's a good cyclist now, but I remember how much of strain. For more than 4 years, I had to go behind him to teach that skill. He is a public speaker, self-confident and good at making friends. And this is a trust which I have started. And Alan doesn't stand for my son's name. It has a meaning, aspire life and nurture. T21, of course, I wanted to change the stigma around Down, which I could do it for the past 4 years. My local society people, everyone, those who don't know, they come to ask me, what is this T21? So I have successfully, got people know what is the real name for Down syndrome. And our motto is to create an inclusive society. We have set 3 goals: social awareness, the 2 calendar days, December 3rd and March 21st is selected for it, parental motivation, and promoting quality life, where we train children for the early schooling and send them to normal school. And along with that, I have a tie-up with all the 300 special schools in Kerala. So I bring out the elder children for open employment and convince the big people there, business people, that we are with you. Our children can do it, just give them a chance. So successfully, we are able to move into inclusion at least a little bit. And your takeaway message, never give up. And your hard work will definitely get rewarded.
Thank you, Rinsi. Now, questions from the audience.
Just a small video of the milestones. You can just glance through. Those who want to ask something can continue.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Thanks. This side, ma'am. Here. Right side. Left.
Okay.
Thanks for such a motivational journey of yours. I just wanted to know this. There must be some kind of faith, trust that must be giving you motivation. I mean, you said there was no motivation in the beginning, initial days. But what keeps you going?
No, that was the initial days which I was not motivated, because we were abroad and the system was not much, developed there. But my motivation is my intuition initially, and still it's the same. The second person to mention is, of course, Dr. Rekha. And along with me, my husband is always there to motivate me. He believes in me. So that's how we keep going. And the best thing is, whatever we implement with Alan, whatever we thought he cannot do, he is doing it. So by the age of 10, I have written a book, Life at 10, which says his life till 10, plus the second part is about trisomy 21 and the research, the realities, because the olden days books just mention it's a chromosomal this thing, and all those things. So what in reality is, I've just put in that book.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
More
you.
question? Okay, thanks. By profession, I am a professor of university. That's why I am seriously involved in conducting various kinds of research work, including Down syndrome. And if I am very critical to this presentation that we enjoy here, I believe that there are some limitations, but I don't want to tell this in detail because of time constraint. But I would like to say that we had 4 presentations. Among these 4 presenters, speaker, 3 of the speaker just shared their experience, how they are encountering different issues of children with autism. And lastly, I'd like to again thanks to Burma, Miss Burma. This could be an example of for the developing countries how India is making their self-advocate to prepare to tell something, to speak their real experience to the audience. Thanks again to all.
There's one more lecture. It's mine.
One more lecture.
I know, I hope it may not be interesting, but I thought I'll complete my lecture. I'm Dr. Shankar, orthopedic surgeon coming from Chennai. I'm going to give a short lecture on orthopedic issues in persons with Down syndrome. We all know Down syndrome is one of the most common chromosomal abnormality in humans. We experience a variety of medical conditions in patients with the Down syndrome. These medical conditions affect the life expectancy and the level of function of a child. So as the treatment associated with this medical condition improves, the life expectancy has increased. This data on the right side, 25 years of life expectancy in 1983 to 60 years at present, is the data from American Down Syndrome Association. But like the thing is, for each country, it may not be the same. It varies from country to country, but we are also getting there thanks to Down Syndrome Association and Down Syndrome Federation of India. People with Down syndrome are graduating high school, college, working and contributing to society more than ever before. So to have a good quality of life, you need a good motor function. It is a prerequisite to integrate into mainstream society and lead independent, fulfilling lives. If you look at the predictors of good life and longevity, in children below 11 years, immobility and tube feeding are considered poor predictors. Whereas above 11 years, ambulation is the best predictor. So you keep the child moving, their life expectancy is more and the quality of life is more. So what are all the orthopedic issues we come across in children with the Down syndrome? It can vary from cervical spine instability to spine curvature to hip problem, knee and foot problem. But for all these things, the common cause is a low muscle tone or a hypertonia and generalized ligamentous laxity resulting in joint hypermobility. Apart from this, there is another condition called arthropathy of Down syndrome. There's still controversy going on whether it's a part of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or it's a different entity on its own in children with Down syndrome. Even though we know about all these conditions, we don't know the natural history of these problems. If you don't treat, what will happen at the end of their lives? But we'll know it will cause pain and disability if we don't treat it when it's not treated. So I'll just take one at a time. The cervical spine instability or a neck instability, the incidence is about 10 to 15% of children, like 1 in 10 of children with Down syndrome will have a cervical spine instability. The instability can happen between the skull bone and the cervical spine or between the cervical spine problem. Sometimes they can happen at both levels. If you don't recognize at the right age and if you don't treat, it will produce irreversible spine damage. If there is an injury to the cervical spine, it will result in weakness of the legs, weakness of the arm, apart from bowel and bladder incontinence. So this is the one thing we have to know well in detail, because if we can identify these lesions well in time, we can almost prevent the progression of the weakness of the legs. So what are the ages you can suspect? Commonly we see this between 5 and 15 years. Even though incidence is about 10 to 15%, most of the children are asymptomatic. Only about 1 to 2% of the children will have a symptomatic instability. So what are all the symptoms you look for? Children who are normal starts complaining of pain in the neck or sensory deficits like pins and needles in the upper and lower limbs or numbness in the lower limbs. Sometimes child started developing bladder incontinence, bedwetting kind of a thing. Or some children will have a subtle symptoms like very well child suddenly not interested in his or her activities, altered gait, loss of ambulatory skills. Walking children are delayed in walking. We should not confuse delayed in walking we see in Down syndrome with neurological cause. So we don't investigate all the children with the Down syndrome looking for instability. When you look at children, about 50% of the children will have a cardiac problem. They'll go in for some kind of a surgery. At the time of anesthesia, they'll do cervical spine screening to make sure there is no instability. If nothing happens, usually the first screening is done at the age of 5 years. If there is instability, whether it's symptomatic or asymptomatic, we'll decide accordingly. If a child with the Down syndrome wants to participate in Special Olympics, always they do spine X-ray screening. If there is an evidence of instability, the child will not be allowed to participate in contact sports and gymnastics. If the child is interested in going for swimming, they will not be allowed to take a diving board. Instead, they have to take it from the pool to go swimming. So we can categorize this into 3 groups. The child who doesn't have any cervical spine instability. Number 2, cervical spine instability, but there is no symptoms. The third one, instability, and the child is symptomatic. The child who doesn't have any instability doesn't need any treatment, but you have to keep them under observation. Maybe once in 3 years or 4 years, you do a simple X-ray of the lateral view. It will tell you whether there is any instability or not. If the child who has instability, but the child doesn't have any symptoms, we have to have a close, regular follow-up, maybe once a year. You have to do an X-ray. If there is any suspicion, there is no harm in doing an MRI to look for any changes in the spinal cord. And we also have to educate the parents to look for neurological signs and symptoms so that the child can be brought up for further follow-up and further investigation. And activity modification. If the child is involved in contact sports or cycling or gymnastics, you have to advise them to be very careful and change their activities. If there is an instability and the symptoms are there, like neurological symptoms, the surgical treatment is the only option. But mind you, the surgery will have a lot of complications from anesthesia to wound healing to non-union of the spine. So this is a child who presented with a quadriparesis following a trivial fall. If you look at the X-ray, there is an instability between the skull bone and the cervical spine. MRI showed evidence of compression of the spinal cord. This child was operated. The cervical spine was fixed with the skull bone, and 1 year later, luckily the fusion happened. The child recovered fully and able to mobilize without any problem. Next comes the scoliosis. Scoliosis is nothing but the spine curvature. Incidence of scoliosis in children with Down syndrome is more than the normal population. There are 2 reasons. We do a lot of increased incidence of cardiac surgeries result in increased thoracotomies. Thoracotomy children, there is an increased incidence of developing scoliosis. Apart from that, regular idiopathic scoliosis resulting in about 7% of children presenting with the scoliosis. So when there is a suspicion, always when the child goes to school, when you're doing a clinical examination, make sure that you examine the spine and make sure there is no evidence of spinal deformity. If there is a deformity, if you can pick it up early, we can manage it with a brace support. If you leave it too long, if it goes into 40, 50 degrees, it won't listen to the bracing, then the surgery is the only option. Next, we'll discuss about the hip instability. Hip, apart from the spine, the next, it's not a common problem. Next serious problem is the hip. Hip instability can happen in different ways. It's 2 to 5% of the children will have a hip problem. When the child is born with a normal hip. When the child starts walking, the hips are normal. So whatever happens, whether it's subluxation or a dislocation, it happens once the child starts walking. That's again because of the low muscle tone and capsular laxity of the hip joint. It can be a part subluxation or a part dislocation or a complete dislocation. It can happen later. Dislocation can happen acutely, suddenly, or it may be a habitual or a recurrent dislocation. Acute dislocation is a condition where the child has a trivial injury, the hip dislocates. Usual age is about 7 to 8 years. Once this happens, child will not be able to put any weight or refuse to walk. So simple under anesthesia, manipulation, reduction, and immobilize, the child will be all right. It won't recur. But habitual dislocation is the one it's very difficult to treat. Here, it can happen from the age of 2 years onwards. Here the hip child can voluntarily dislocate or it can dislocate on its own. Every time the hip dislocates, it will damage the ball as well as the cup of the hip joint. The repeated dislocation will resulting in arthritis. This arthritis will lead on to painful hip and difficulty in walking at a later stage. So
5
if you
minutes
leave it
to go.
to that stage, the surgical reconstruction is the only option. Here there is a child, you can see that the hip dislocated. If you look at the socket instead of like a cup, it's